Hi, Pocket. In this video, I tell the tale of my greatest triumph and what it cost me. It's weekly bounty time in Monster Hunter Wilds. This week we have 5 1-star quests, pretty much anything goes for that one, 3 quests in the forest, 3 Uthdunas, and 3 tempered monsters 6-star or higher. The stars kind of align on their own for this one. Uthduna only spawns in the forest, so those two knock each other out easy enough. And if we can get our hands on a tempered Uthduna investigation, that should solve these last 3 all at once. Thankfully, Uthduna is very easy to spawn. By heading to the forest and resting at the tent until inclemency, an Uthduna always spawns. It only took me 1 try to spawn my tempered Uthduna, easy peasy. It's not an uncommon thing for people's school days to be some of their worst days. The plates juggled by academics are plentiful, and rarely does a person get through those years without at least half a dozen awkward clatterings. I'm no exception to this. In my elementary school years, my quirks were my strength. I had a knack for making people laugh in those simple times, and it didn't take a lot to lighten a room. A silly face, an odd noise, maybe an intentional stumble on the way inside. The cost of joy was a stubbed toe. In those years, I excelled both academically and interpersonally. In middle school, there was a change. See, in gaming, there's a term called the meta. It's an acronym that stands for Most Effective Tactics Available. Basically, whatever people think is the best strategy is considered the meta. Using an uncommon strategy, or one people think is bad, is off meta, and if it turns out to be good, then it's meta breaking. For example, if Monster Hunter Wilds players considered dual blades to be one of the most effective weapons, we would call dual blades meta. In middle school, the joke meta changed harshly. People generally stopped laughing so much at silly or trivial things, and began laughing more at silly or trivial people. When pointing and laughing at an odd face, they started pointing and laughing at an odd person. These traits became mockable and permanent fixtures of people, and reputations and identities began to solidify into these immutable, precious things. You could see it in the little things, like the way their teeth pressed together when they smiled. I recognized this, and I recognized myself drifting toward it as well. That tempting abyss, to follow the meta, to remain relevant, effective, funny, well-liked. But I caught myself on the edge before it pulled me in, and I cursed myself for nearly falling. I made an oath one summer that I would not conform to it, that I would not endorse this meta if it meant cruelty. My classmates recognized this when I rejoined them after summer break, my lack of indulgence. And after I made my choice known, my choice not to take targets, I became one. I cannot truthfully say that their words did not wound me. Unfunny and annoying were their favorite descriptors for me, and though I resisted them, with enough pressure, those words indented themselves into my skin. I began to believe them. Their cruelties were not solely verbal, of course, and as my peers and I ascended to high school and grew into our larger, stronger bodies, so too would their cruelties tend toward physical involvement. It's sometimes hard for me to view it as bullying, even now. My classmates had done such a good job convincing me of my shortcomings that, gradually, as things became more and more violent, I was almost certain that they were warranted. If I were truly so annoying and so unfunny, then those acts were simply my reaping of what I had sown. Despite it all, I found classes that I enjoyed, and even a friend or two. I had subjects that I loved, like music and chemistry and computer science. The pain was a background noise to the main act, and I let it fade into my peripherals as often as I could, an adaptation I developed. To focus on the now, the joy, and let the rest just loom. In high school, physical education, PE, wasn't my favorite, but I had things I liked about it. We had a segment on indoor soccer, or football, and I loved that. I took it very seriously back then, organizing my teammates carefully and doing callouts, practicing leadership skills that would find more use later in MMO raiding, gaming collaborations, and even in the workplace. I took on the role of defense. My main goal was simply to keep the ball on the opponent's side of the field, to maximize our offensive opportunities. The gym was a symphony of sneakers squeaking against the gym floor, heavy breathing, grunting, teammates shouting at one another as the resting team laughed and gossiped while watching the match. The sour smell of sprayed-on antiperspirant stung my eyes. Our class was split into 3 teams. One team would rest on the bleachers while the other 2 played, and that team would eventually switch in with whichever team lost. The idea was that the best team would eventually get too tired and have to switch out, which often worked out. In one of these games, the opposing team had one of my enemies, a practitioner of my cruelties. He had a certain nonchalance about him that some found charming. He was well liked by most everyone in the class, of course, but certainly not by me. After all, I knew his knuckle a bit better than anyone else, and perhaps even the bottom of his shoe, but it's quite hard to tell whose it is when you're down there. He had chosen the role of goalie for his team, and given my chosen role of defense, we rarely faced one another head-on. Still, I watched from across the gym as he blocked my team's shots, laughing at them and mocking them. They laughed back. It was all just harmless teasing for them. Annoying, unfunny, I thought, glaring at him and using the weapons I knew best. Buried in the soil of my chest was a bitter seed. As I watched him feed his ego, reveling in his minor victories against my allies, I felt droplets of rain strike the soil, seeping in and saturating that buried seed. Observing, a root began to break out from the shell. One of his minions came surging across the arena, dribbling the ball between their feet. I jumped in and captured it from them in a quick move, and as I looked across the gym, I saw, to my surprise, an empty goal. I didn't question it, pushing the advantage a bit as I glanced around for the missing goalie, my foe. And then I saw him. Halfway between the goal and the bleachers, he'd been chatting with his girlfriend during the game, who was on the resting team. Joking with her, probably doing something disgusting. The two were laughing as he walked back toward his empty post. Oh? I looked back down at myself. That seed of bitterness, sown deep in my chest, had broken through the ground. It sprouted in the mere moments I'd looked away, the moments I was watching my enemy, and reached out from me, a pristine rose, whose petals were the shade of precious dripping rubies, a lacerated carmine. Stunned by it, I inhaled and felt its fragrance seep into me as its roots crawled out and tangled across my arteries. My eyes went wide, heart racing, as I was infatuated by my own wrath. I had locked onto him and darted across the gym, leaving my own post as well. I dribbled past his teammates, simple obstacles until I was within range, and then he blew a kiss to his girlfriend on the bleachers, a smirk drawn on by arrogance, turning slowly back toward the battlefield. He blinked along the way, getting ready to reassess the game, when he saw the battlefield quickly fading behind the rapidly growing image of the ball. Smack! It struck him directly in the face. I stared, the ball bouncing upwards. I watched as my enemy staggered backwards, reaching back toward a wall too far to properly brace himself on. The roots of that wrathful rose gripped around my body, and I felt my blood run hot. The ball caught the attention of everyone in the room like a shooting star as it rolled across the half-lowered basketball goal and into the hoop. The first noise was a laugh from the bleachers. I stared in disbelief, like I had watched a miracle unfold. I knew I could have landed the shot on his face, but the rest was luck. I felt a euphoric rush, the kind of triumph I can only imagine is reserved for mythological heroes completing their quests. It was a dreamlike moment. I was shaken awake by the shrill whistle of the coach. Ah, I thought, the cost of my joy. What will it be? The coach would be the judge of my crimes. After all, there was no hiding my intention. The class knew how seriously I took the game and my dexterity. I had chosen to aim not toward the empty, free goal, but toward its absent keeper, even though my team was down a point. I had chosen vengeance over victory. I faced my judgment. The coach opened his mouth. No, the match is over. Pocket's team wins. I was frozen, too thrilled to even smile, as my team erupted in cheers. The bleachers laughing and my enemy laid into a puddle of their embarrassments. Insane shot, man. A teammate who had never spoken to me patted my shoulders. I let out a breathy chuckle. The goddess Athena, who I called for wisdom, chose on that day to give me war, and I had won it. The next game became a bit of a blur. I was drunk on my victory. The nectar of that flower settled into my blood as it wilted into dust. The seed of bitterness having grown to completion and resolved. I felt lighter, like the clouds were within my reach. I carelessly snatched the ball from an enemy and passed it down the gym. I had hardly noticed the girl racing towards me, the girlfriend of my enemy, who ignored that I had passed the ball and kicked anyway, striking my leg directly. The impact nearly twisted my foot backwards. I didn't fall, but the vibration of my bones shook me. Numbed by the drunkenness of glory, by the presence of a recently formed permanent memory, I played out the rest of the game, albeit with a worsening limp. I limped to my things, I limped to the bus, and I limped home. No one asked if I was okay. My time in the sun had been brief, but glorious, that I had barely even felt the pain until the moment I stepped into my home. I collapsed immediately and began to cry, the compiled agony and joy racing through all at once. I laid there on the ground for minutes, my useless leg laid against the welcome mat, as my tears puddled on the wood floor beneath my face. So this is the cost, I thought. The cost of joy. A broken ankle. I laughed at the misery, a much steeper price than a stubbed toe. But I had to admit, it was still worth it. After finishing up hunting a fourth Uthduna, a Rathian was kind enough to show up, déjà vu, just like last time. So I chopped that dragon up to finish the last bounty, the 5th 1-star quest, and returned to the bounty cat to collect my goodies. Good game, weeklies. I took a bit of a break to fish and even caught a whopper. I was thinking about what story I wanted to tell this week, and came upon that memory. After the last weekly bounties video where I talked about stories with my mom, I thought it would be fun to do that for these ones. Tell stories. I think it's important not to forget them. Time has a way of whittling stories, sometimes shaping them into different things entirely, so it can be good to tell them, even if to just write them down for yourself. If you have any stories you'd like to tell, I'd love to hear them. If you've ever felt truly triumphant, the blessings of Athena? Anywho, that's all this time. Thank you for watching, fellow hunters. Good luck, and goodbye.